Hi, welcome to the Crafts channel. My name's Corinne Bradd and today I want to show you how to make a multi-pocket phone case, such as this one here. And it's great for storing not only your phone, but because you have these pockets in the front, you can store a bit of cash, or bank cards, and membership cards. And it's perfect, even if it's just for a quick night out, something you can hold in your hand, padded so that if you drop it, you don't break your phone. So I will put a template in the description below. This is the front and the lining, and then you need 2 pockets, again lined. Now what I've done with the outers of both the back of the pouch and the front of the pouch is I've actually fused some applique sheet onto them. So if I just peel that backing paper off, and grab yourself a medium heat iron and the world's smallest ironing board, and then I'm just going to fuse these onto a piece of medium weight quilt wadding. Now normally what I would do when I fuse this kind of stuff is I'd zigzag stitch, but I don't want too many extra bits of stitching around my phone case. Tell you what I am also going to do as well. It's going to flip it over and iron it on the back. And if you're using a quilt wadding that's got any kind of sort of polyester fibre in it, you need to make sure you use a press cloth on it, because what you don't want is if your iron's too hot and it then melts the wadding onto the sole plate of your iron, it'll take you hours to clean it up. So there's one piece, and there's the second piece. Now before you go any further, and just trim those wadding to the edges of your fabric pieces, because you're going to need to see where your seams are going to run. So you can do this with scissors or a rotary cutter. So there you have it. So that's the back and the front, and then the flap comes over like so. Now before you do anything more with the back and the front, what you do want to do is you want to take your front pocket pieces, place them right sides together, and just stitch along that diagonal edge with a 5mm seam allowance. Do that with both of your pockets. And then hopefully actually with the residual heat from that iron, should just be enough to set that seam and press it out. And then what I am going to do is I'm just going to top stitch along the edge of that seam. I'm going to move my needle a little bit to the right so I can still line up the edge of the fabric with the guideline on my foot but not have such a wide seam. So you have your pockets, you have your front and back, actually let's put those pockets that way round so that each zigzag, it runs as a zigzag. So take your front panel, take your larger pocket and then place the smaller one over the top of it. Pop a couple of, oh, there's my pin cushion. Pop a couple of pins in there. And then just stay stitch a little bit along the bottom edge. And a little bit up each side. Just to hold those pieces in place. Because then what you need to do is you need to take your linings and place the lining over the whole of that front panel. And stitch them right sides together. Along the top edge. Open that out. Now the temptation would be to do what I've done on these pockets here, which is to fold it over and top stitch it, but don't do that yet because you need to do the same with the back of the pouch. And obviously when you open this one out, because your seam is at an angle, your lining doesn't stay quite as straight as it should. So what you need to do is, because this is going to become the flap, before you do anything else, you need to line up your pieces and mark with a pin the ends of the flap. And don't mark it on the fabric, mark it on the stitched line. So it's here. And if you use stripy fabric, it makes it really easy to have your line going straight across. So I'm just going to sew up these two pieces here, which are these two edges of the flap. Take your pins out, and then before you forget, just clip off those top corners. So now when you open the lining, if you open it up as far as that seam, it now lays straight. So what you can do is then take the front of your phone case and the back of your phone case And in an ideal world, they would be the same length, but my world is never quite an ideal world. Line up the seams of the where the outer and the lining join. Pop a pin in there. Pop a pin in here. And then carefully line up all your layers. So they are relatively straight. And if you find you do have a slight discrepancy with the length, as long as it's not more than about 5mm, it will be fine. If it's more than about 5mm, you will have made some sort of error. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew the outer first. I'm not going to do it all the way around because you've got this flap here. And if you do it all the way around, you're going to end up stitching your flap into your seam. So again, 5mm seam allowance. And you're going to sew all the way around the outers. And bear in mind, in some places, you're actually sewing through about, 6, 7 layers of fabric plus wadding. So take it easy. And then just sew back up to the lining seam. Again, trim your corners off before you forget, because there's quite a bulk of fabric there. I'm just going to trim up that seam allowance as well. And then open the flap to the other side before you then stitch your linings together. And what I'll be doing is I'm going to leave a gap on the bottom edge of that lining to turn the whole thing the right way round. Now, I normally leave quite a small gap on things like this. I know to my cost that because you've got padded fabric here and pockets, you're going to need a slightly bigger lining, a slightly bigger gap than you normally would. So, pop your needle in right on that seam where the lining and the outer join. Sew down one long edge and then just, I'd say, sew in about 1 centimetre along that bottom edge. And some people would say, well, why are you even sewing any of that bottom edge if you want a large gap for turning? The reason I tend to do it just on those corners is so that you've got a definite line of where you're turning your 5mm seam allowance in. Start again about 1 centimetre or so from the other side of the bottom and stitch all the way up. As I say, taking care... Oh, I'm such an idiot. I was about to say, taking care that you haven't got the flap in the way. I need to restitch that seam in a sec because this is what I've done. I've sewn the flap into it. I'll show you how to do it properly on this seam. And then I'm just going to unpick this and we can edit this bit out. But I like to show you the mistakes because that's what happens when you're not paying attention. You like to know my pitfalls, don't you? Right, so while you weren't looking, I have now unpicked the flap from the seam. And again, I'm just going to trim down my fabric so it matches up. And then that usual little trick that I do with a glue stick to make sure that when you're turning your things the right way round, the edge of your gap doesn't get frayed and stretched and horrible. Just put a little bit of glue on there. And again, finger press it up in line with that seam. And add a little bit of glue. It's not imperative that you do that, but it does save a lot of heartache when it's then time to turn your seams. So, you have your lining, you have your outer, you have your flap. If you pop your fingers inside the gap, and go right down to the furthest corner, and then just pull it through in its entirety, and then also go back down into it and find the flap and push those corners out. And then I should grab yourself quite a large knitting needle and use this to push your corners out. And we'll push the corners of the flap out as well. So your lining is here. And then what you can do is if you just pair up those two previously glued edges, you can just very quickly top stitch to hold that seam closed. And then pop the lining completely inside. Now, when you turn this out, if you turn it inside out and then you discover that for some reason you've got one pocket on the front and one pocket on the back, it is simply the way you've turned it out. I mean, you can arrange it so you have got one pocket on the front and one pocket on the back if you wish. So that's all pressed and neat. And then your flap comes down like so. Let's see if my phone does fit into that one. Yep. And then very easily to finish it off, plastic snap fasteners, and they're like a plier fix almost. Let's go for, we'll pop it on a grey. So you need 2 drawing pin pieces and 2 or 1 male and 1 female piece for each fastening. Now this one here I've put 2, 1 for each corner. That's a bit overkill really, you don't need 2. Just 1 on that lower edge, like this one here is ample. So fold your case over, just move that to one side. And with the tool that you should get with your snap fastener kit, just pierce a hole right through the flap and right through the inner. Take it out and pop a drawing pin piece from the inside out of the front of the pouch. Oh, look. one male and one female piece. What have I done? I've picked up 2 male pieces. Bear with me. Pop, I tend to put the female piece on the inside. Get your pliers. Position them over the snap and press down hard. And what it does, I'll show you on this one, where you've put that drawing pin piece in and then the cover over the top. The head of this it's a rubber head, but there's a metal piece inside there, and the metal piece flattens that pin part without damaging this male or female part. So it just snaps closed. So there you go. Quite an interesting little project. It's a little bit different, but it's very easy, especially if you're a novice sewer or this is the first kind of sewing project, because you get a really good result just from straight line stitching again. So I hope you enjoyed that demonstration. I hope you'll come back and see some more of our demos. We've got loads coming up. Template for this will be in the comments section, or if you click show more, it will bring up the template. And please do leave us a comment, because we do like to hear from you. If you've got any questions, I'll always try and answer them for you. In the meantime though, till we see you again, please keep safe, and thank you very much for watching. If you've been inspired to create, please share your makes with us in the comments section below. And if you've enjoyed videos by the Crafts channel, hit the like button. Want to see more of us? Then click subscribe. See you next time.